What's up, Rockstars? Today I have a interesting video for you that's going to touch on a slightly charged subject. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of maturity from you, and you're going to get a little maturity from me. Alright, so Mass Effect the board game Priority Hagalaz, I think is the name of it. Either way, Mass Effect the board game came out, developed by Eric Lang, so it's got a designer that's known to make really good games, at least did. I haven't played one of his recent games in a while, but he certainly played or made some of my favorite ones from a few years back. Mass Effect, of course, a big IP, and so this should be really good. A match made in heaven, right? Solid IP. Eric Lang, you would think, does really well. Sadly, as you can see here, a 4.8 rating on BGG. Now, why would it have a 4.8 rating? Is it really that bad? No, probably not. So if you look here at the ratings, you're going to see a lot of ones and even quite a bit of twos. You would think there's some people that are middling, maybe a few that are upset, maybe a few that really love it, but why all of the ones? Well, it turns out it is being review bombed. Why is it being review bombed? As you can see, there are a lot of comments. I'll link down to everything I'm showing in the description below, of course, for you to follow, but as you can see, there is a lot of really low rankings and then a lot of really high rankings. Most of the high ones are saying they're offsetting the low ones. Most of the low ones are referring to a specific thing. That specific thing is this. So as you can see right here, this is the rule book that they have posted on the Modifius site. They're the publisher of this, and they are showing the squad cards. And as you can see right underneath Garrus, it says his pronouns, he, him. Now again, before you comment, again, maturity. Let's go and actually make a discussion about this, because I have an interesting take on this that I doubt anybody else has really expressed. I'm very passionate about this subject, and I'm excited to talk about it. So just stick with me. We're going through the facts, and then I'll talk about my opinion, kind of wrap a bow around this problem, this issue, and why perhaps there are people that are upset at this specifically versus maybe something else, okay? So you can see here there is a Reddit post, right? And it says, Mass Effect board game creators were so preoccupied with giving characters preferred pronouns that they forgot how to spell adrenaline correctly. They forgot the D in adrenaline, so there's a mistype there. But here you can see Lyria. It's been a long time, and I only played Mass Effect 1, so I had to do some research for this, but calm down. Either way, and it says that she is a she, they. They. Sorry, I believe there are some Z's too, so I want to make sure I do the TH right. Either way, that's kind of the synopsis on, hey, they were so focused on this and cramming this into the board game that they forgot to actually make a good board game, right? It's kind of the idea here. Okay. Well, that is one thing, and certainly, you know, that can get people kind of fussy. However, Eric Lang, if you didn't know, I actually used to follow him on social media, and then I stopped. He used to really focus on just board games, and it was really cool. He would talk about the intricacies of making a board game, and it was always fascinating. I really liked following Eric Lang for that. So it's quite a long time ago, but I did. I unfollowed him years and years ago as well, because once he really got into Twitter, just like everybody who really gets into Twitter, they get a little charged and a little excitable online, right? And so he did kind of the same thing, got very political and started like telling people to F off, and you know, people are all these different like names, and if you don't agree with me, then you're stupid, and all this other kind of stuff you kind of see online a lot, right? And sure enough, he responded to this as well. He said, I hate even talking about this on social media, but if you played Mass Effect, the board game, would you mind giving it a rating on BGG to offset the effing man babies trying to tank the rating with ones because they can't handle looking at pronouns on a character sheet? And then he deleted that because of obviously that then exploded. And this is kind of what has caused it to explode, kind of. I think there's some more nuance at play here, but either way, obviously throwing kind of fire at this point, right? It's like, that's obviously just going to rile up people. As opposed to like have like a conversation about it. And I apologize for the F word. I typically keep a pretty clean channel. Eric Lane does not keep a clean channel, hence why I unfollowed him. But either way, there's that. Okay, now I want to dive into this first with some lore, and that'll lead into my opinion on this at large, both why it failed and why it might be there to begin with. Why it failed to connect with a lot of people instead of just making people upset, right? Okay. So, obviously, Mass Effect is a science fiction made-up universe, with aliens, right? Now, aliens can be all sorts of different things, right? But I was like, well, maybe what is Mass Effect doing with this? Because Mass Effect, as a sci-fi area, might touch on, hey, there's this alien. Is it a guy or a chick, right? Or like, who is it, right? And so there's this video here. Again, I linked down to everything below, but this is from the latest one, Mass Effect Andromeda. So this is way after the fact of Mass Effect 1, the only one I've actually played. And they come across this. The conversation says an Asari, which, if you didn't know, is this race right here, right? She's an Asari. And so it says here, yes, the gender binary of other races is irrelevant to us. And then this guy says, I've been using feminine pronouns this entire time. Should I? And then the Asari says, in my case, it's fine to continue. Thank you for asking, though. I appreciate it. And then they say, some Asari prefer male pronouns, while others gravitate towards gender neutral, where language allows. And then the guy says, my people have several pronouns to identify themselves with. Perhaps I should prepare a document. And the Asari says, please do. Okay, so that's kind of the latest one, touching on like what, goes into this, right? So then in this one, this is actually from Mass Effect, the first one, so the one I would have played, though again, I don't know how you get to this conversation with this person here. But essentially, they're talking about, and this is Lyria actually, it says, most of the inaccuracies are centered around our mating rituals. My species is monogendered. Male and female have no real meaning to us. So they have they all look like you would say that they're female, and then they have like a patriarchy, and they talk about the fathers because they're kind of like one gender. All that to say, again, aliens, right? Like the whole point of a lot of sci-fi is to explore things outside of our normal human realm, right? Where you have like all these fantastical things like, what if there was a non-carbon based life form, and what if there was this monogendered, race, and how would that be, and what would that look like, right? And so that's where that alien stuff comes into play, and why I think it's kind of relevant. So to pull it back to the issue posted here, right? I think, because obviously in Mass Effect, they're talking about some kind of gender stuff. It doesn't necessarily say pronouns necessarily, but it says they're monogendered and male and female have no real meaning to them. And then even in the latest one, so from the first to the last one, they're discussing this kind of odd situation around at least this race, and perhaps many other alien species. Race, species, I apologize if I use the wrong word. You get what I'm saying. I am speaking quite casually here. I apologize. But the whole point is that lots of aliens exist, right? And they could be all sorts of different things. And so you're trying to define, okay, how do I address these people, right? In that sense, I think the pronouns actually kind of make sense. I think it makes sense to be like, okay, this blob here, is this blob a male or a female, right? Just because this alien looks female because of the body shape doesn't necessarily mean that it is, because it's literally an alien species in a made-up world, right? It's kind of the whole point. So why would this make people upset then? If the IP itself often addresses this at length. Again, I'll link down to those videos. You can go ahead and watch them. This is a big conversation where they're talking about males and females and gender with this species specifically, even nonetheless others. And I think the point comes down to how overt it is. So when you're playing Mass Effect, right, you're talking to these aliens, you're on a spaceship, and they're just talking, and you're just having this conversation. In fact, Shepard alone can be male or female. That's been a famous thing on the video game for forever. He plays a male Shepard or a female Shepard. Either way, they're called Shepard. And all the wording was carefully chosen to often not need a he, him, she, her, right? Because you could play as either one, and they don't want to record a whole bunch of voice lines, so often you're referred to just as Shepard, your last name, whether it was a male Shepard or a female Shepard. So these things can be tackled in a way to where it's kind of obvious, right? Or I guess it's not so obvious. And so I imagine a lot of people have even played Mass Effect and not really noticed a lot of the kind of wiggling around that, and said they were just experiencing a story, and that story had these characters, and these characters were a certain way. So when you put it here where it is listed right under their name in just as big font, just about, very much highlighted, here are their specific pronouns, you're both drawing a large focus on a very specific portion of an alien species when there are a whole host of them, and it is then right there kind of in your face. So I would say both the board game and the video game are tackling this issue, among others, or at least the video game among others. I don't know what the board game, it looks like they're really focusing on this one, at least overtly on the character page. It's elevated up to that level. But either way, they're both talking about this. They both have a similar opinion on it. She could very much do she, they, and that would make sense for that alien species for translating to the human language where we have to refer to something like that, right? Totally fine with that. But it's not done in a very good way. It's done in actually a really bad way. Now, I'm going to take this back to sci-fi in general. I really like sci-fi. I've talked about this several times. I like Babylon 5 and all this kind of stuff. And I like certain episodes of Star Trek. I like sci-fi short stories. Those are some of my favorite as well. When I say I like certain episodes of Star Trek, what I mean by that is I like the ones that just explore a really cool idea. And often this is the case for a lot of movies as well, right? Like, you have like Elysium up in the sky, and that's where all the like rich people are and stuff like that. And all the poor people are down below, and everybody's trying to get to Elysium, right? That's been used a lot in a lot of different stuff, including a lot of sci-fi, both video games, movies, all sorts of stuff. And it allows you to do some kind of commentary on our world, our human world, but do it in such a fantastical way in sci-fi to where it's almost hidden in the story itself, right? And it's almost like instead of just humans and humans, it's now an alien. This alien species does this, and now what do you do? And it's the same situation humans have trying to interact with each other, but now spun up into a way to where it's more easily accessible and enjoyable. So there's been a lot of social commentary in sci-fi, and I actually like a lot of that. However, it can be done really poorly. So there's good sci-fi and bad sci-fi. One of the most famous episodes of this for early Star Trek in the OG is the race that had black and white, where half of them were black and half of them were white, obviously speaking to different racial injustices and handlings in the real world, but done as an alien. But it was so overt. Essentially, the idea is they're always like black on the right, but one person was black on the left, and they were like, why are you treating them different? You guys are the same race. And that was literally kind of too on point, too overt, too in your face as we're sending a message. Whereas there's a lot of other Star Trek episodes that also speak to a message, but do it in a way to where you're not, it's not in your face, right? You're not being preached to. You're just enjoying a story, and it has some kind of moral compass to it. Sometimes these can be hard. Right? Sometimes it can be a little overt and it can cause discussion, and I love that. One of the most famous episodes for Babylon 5 is Believers, for this reason. Believers, there's this race, this alien race, and they believe that their soul is in their body, and so they don't allow operations to cut open the body because they believe you lose your soul and then you're just a husk of a person, right? Husk of this alien species. That's literally their belief. And there's this mother and father alien, and they have this kid alien, and the kid needs surgery or they are going to die. There's something wrong with the organs or whatever. And the doctor on the ship, who's a human, is like, I want to operate and fix your person, fix your kid. And of course, the alien species is like, oh my gosh, no, that would be terrible. He'd lose his soul. Like, why would you kill him? You'd like kill him in a way that's way worse than just the body dying and naturally, moving on. So they have this religious belief against a medical practice. You can see the relation to real world issues, but done in a way that is now sci-fi and isn't necessarily in your face. So this one, again, kind of rides the line pretty close, which is why it's a good example for this story. Either way, the doctor ends up doing the surgery, and then the aliens end up killing the body that they believe is in there. And there's this whole discussion like, well, what if the aliens actually do kind of like have a soul in there? But like it's literally an alien. Like, you have no idea what's going on with the alien. That's what sci-fi kind of allows you to do, is have these conversations, do this kind of commentary, but in a way that's natural. And that's good sci-fi, I feel. I like that kind of sci-fi. This is not good sci-fi, right? This is kind of like a way too over. This is the black face, white face, which half of the black is on kind of social commentary that just isn't very good. And I think part of it is just the elevating up of this over the many other interesting things you can dive into when it comes to alien cultures. For instance, they didn't elevate up a religious idea on, oh, is it monotheist or, like what's going on there with Valyria? It doesn't matter. Instead, it's just the pronouns. So that's kind of the problem there is it's taking an IP that handled this kind of stuff really well. And now it's done by some board game creators that didn't handle it very well. And therefore, now people are upset. That's, I think, my opinion on why this is such a big issue. As well as, obviously, just like poking the fire with a stick and being surprised that it explodes when Eric Lang responds the way that he does, right? But that's not really what he's too busy being angry on Twitter, along with what I can tell is I think 98% of people on Twitter are just angry all the time. So anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on this. I hope you made it to the end of the video and actually heard my opinion on this. Obviously, there was some bandwagoning. Obviously, there were some people that aren't fans of it. And in general, I think a lot of people consume media with shallow thought. And I don't mean that as an insult, because you just can't critically think about everything in your life unless you're really going into it thinking critically, or you're sensitive to a certain thing that triggers you to think critically. So I'm sure a lot of people played through Mass Effect not realizing a lot of the social commentary that sci-fi is doing. It's why people are surprised to find that Star Trek to this day is fairly liberal leaning in its messaging, even though it always was. They're kind of just now triggering it because either it triggers something recent because of stuff like Twitter, or because it's not done in as deft a way, and when it's not, it's suddenly like, oh my gosh, they're actually kind of like speaking to me with a moral story that reflects real life. Even though they're doing it all the time, when it's done like this, it kind of snaps you out and you feel kind of preached at, right? And so there's a lot of that too. And of course, there's people that just want to hate on something and they're not fans of Mass Effect. They may not even be real big fans of this kind of board game, and they don't necessarily care. So in my opinion, it's just really poorly done and improperly focused on more than it needs to be. I think it makes perfect sense to navigate through this in a sci-fi or in anything that has different races or species of beings that are intelligent, that can talk, right? Even just talking about different languages, you can kind of get into this. So anyway, just kind of an interesting take. It's definitely getting review bombed. There's no recovering really from that. And honestly, I just wish it had been handled better, because Mass Effect, I think, did handle it pretty well. And it's unfortunate the board game didn't follow case with that. So anyway, that's my opinion. I'd love to know yours. Again, please stay mature. I'm sure there are some comments on there and some people that didn't make it through the whole video, don't care about acting mature, are coming from Twitter, coming to here, upset at the internet, upset on the internet, upset at everything. Don't worry about it. Just say your piece. I promise to interact with you if you act in a way that like kind of makes it to where it's pleasant to talk to you. So try and do that maybe. Anyway, my opinion. Let me know yours. Have a great day. Take care, guys. Bye.